My daughter texted me 3 weeks before her wedding. The wedding I was paying $40,000 for. You can come if you still pay, she wrote, but don't expect a seat up front. I read it twice. Then I typed back 6 words I meant with my whole heart. Then I'll keep the 40,000 and you can keep the seat. She called me in tears 1 hour later. But by then it was too late, because the second I hit send, I didn't sit there and cry. I called my lawyer. And my lawyer had already made her calls to the venue, the caterer, and the planner before my daughter ever dialed my number. By the time Bryn was sobbing into the phone asking what I'd done, the $40,000 was already on its way back to me, and the grand wedding they'd planned without me had quietly come apart. Here's how a woman they called just the cleaning lady took back her $40,000 and her dignity in the same afternoon. Welcome back to Family Justice Vault, where the woman they treat like the help is usually the one holding the contract. Stay to the end. My name is Cora Thorne. I'm 64 years old, and I built everything I have with these 2 hands and a bucket. I started cleaning offices at night when Bryn was 4, and her father decided fatherhood wasn't for him. 1 mop, 1 rusted station wagon, 1 client, a dentist's office that paid $60 a week. 35 years later, Thorne Commercial Cleaning has 60 employees, a fleet of vans, and contracts across half the office parks in the county. My hands aren't soft anymore. The knuckles are swollen, the palms rough, a permanent callus on my thumb from 40 years of wringing out mops before dawn. I used to be embarrassed by them, not anymore. People see a woman with hands like mine and decide they know the whole story. Cleaning lady, salt of the earth, not someone you seat up front. My future in-laws decided that the day they met me. Eventually, my own daughter decided it too. They all forgot one thing. A woman who built a company from 1 bucket reads a contract very carefully before she signs it. Bryn is my only child. I raised her alone and would walk into traffic for her. I need you to know that before I tell you the rest, because the rest will make you angry at her, and I'm not angrier at her than I had to be. I never missed a recital, even arriving straight from a job in my work clothes, smelling like industrial cleaner. I paid her way through college $100 at a time. She became a marketing manager, smart, polished, and a little ashamed of where she came from, the way kids sometimes are when they climb. She started saying her mom was in facilities management instead of saying I cleaned offices. I let it slide. Then she met Preston Whitfield, old money or the memory of it. 3 generations, a grandfather who'd owned mills, a family that wore its last name like a crown. I offered to pay for the wedding before anyone asked. $40,000, every cent earned on my knees. The proudest check I ever planned to write. I met Vivian Whitfield at a dinner to celebrate the engagement. She took my rough hand in her smooth one for exactly as long as politeness required. Cora, she said, Preston tells us you're in cleaning. How industrious. 35 years, I told her. Built it myself. How nice there's such steady demand for that sort of thing, she said, and turned to someone who mattered. That was the whole relationship in 90 seconds. What I learned slowly afterward was that the Whitfields' money was mostly gone. The mills had closed decades ago. What they had left was the name, a house with a roof they kept putting off, and a bottomless need to be seen as people who still mattered. Old money with empty pockets is the proudest and most dangerous kind, because it has nothing left to protect but the appearance of having something. Here came Cora Thorne, a cleaning lady with an actual checkbook, offering to fund the party that would prove they were still somebody. They wanted my money. They just couldn't stand the idea of me sitting at the good table while they spent it, but I didn't hand anyone a blank check. I became the customer. Every vendor, the venue, caterer, florist, photographer, band, I signed those contracts myself. Cora Thorne, responsible party. I paid the deposits from my company account, and I had my lawyer, Sandra Fenn, read every one before I signed. Sandra circled the cancellation terms with her red pen. You're the sole responsible party on all of these, she said. More than 90 days out, you'd get most of your deposits back. Nobody else has authority to spend a dime of this but you. Why would I pull the plug, I asked. No reason, she said. Just know that you can. I filed the contracts in a green folder and forgot her words. I'd remember them 3 weeks before the wedding, holding my phone at 11 at night. The takeover happened slowly, then all at once, always framed as help. Vivian had thoughts about the venue, then the flowers, then the guest list, which swelled with Whitfield cousins and business contacts until my side was squeezed down to a handful of seats. The invitations went out with their crest. The local paper described Bryn as marrying into the prominent Whitfield family, who would host, with my $40,000. When I'd ask about a detail, Bryn would say gently, "Oh, Vivian already handled that, Mom. She has such a good eye with my money." The hardest part wasn't Vivian. It was watching Bryn change. She started talking like them, caring about the right handbag, the right zip code. The Sunday calls got shorter. When I mentioned coming to a planning meeting, there'd be a pause before she said it probably wasn't necessary. Vivian had it covered. She'd spent her childhood watching her mother get looked down on, and now here was a gleaming family offering to fold her into a world where nobody would look down on her again. All she had to do was be a little ashamed of me. She was choosing it one easy step at a time. Then came the seating chart. A wedding seating chart is a small thing and an enormous thing. The front row is for the people who made you. I assumed I'd be there. I'd paid for the room, raised the bride, earned that seat over 28 years and $40,000. But in the Whitfields' map, the front was real estate for Whitfields and the people they wanted to impress. A banker, a state senator, cousins with the right names. There simply wasn't room for a cleaning lady, even one paying for everything. I found out by accident. A draft seating chart got shared to a group that included me. Row 6. Behind the Whitfield cousins. Behind a state senator I'd never met. At my own daughter's wedding, the one I was paying $40,000 for, I called Bryn calmly first. "Sweetheart, I think there's a mistake. I'm in row 6. The pause told me it wasn't a mistake. The front rows are kind of spoken for, she said, careful, rehearsed. Vivian feels strongly the front should reflect the families standing in the community. Then she said the thing that wasn't her voice, it was Vivian's. Mom, it's honestly not a big deal where you sit. You should just handle the check and let the people who understand this kind of event handle the details that matter. Just handle the check. Let the people who matter handle what matters." There it was. I wasn't a mother. I was a funding source. I told Lupe about it the next morning, my floor manager of 22 years, who tells me the truth whether I want it or not. "You're paying $40,000 to be told to sit in the back and keep your mouth shut," she said. "You're financing the people who look down on you to look down on you more comfortably. You always think being a good mother means disappearing. It doesn't. Sometimes it means showing your kid what self-respect looks like. She can only learn it from you." I drove home turning it over, not sure I had it in me to do anything but swallow it again. Then at 11 that night, my phone buzzed, and Bryn made the decision for me. Vivian had found out I'd questioned the seating chart, framed it to Bryn as me making a scene, threatening to ruin the day over a chair. By the time Bryn picked up her phone, she wasn't quite my daughter anymore. She was a frightened girl repeating a position that had been installed in her. "Mom," the text read, "Vivian and I talked, and we really need you to drop the seating thing. It's causing so much stress. You can come to the wedding if you still pay, but don't expect a seat up front. The front is for the Whitfield side and important guests. Please just let this go. It's not about you." I read it 3 times, waiting for the hurt to take me down the way it usually did. Instead, something clean and cool came up through me. Certainty. I looked at the green folder sitting on the side table by pure chance. The folder Sandra had handed me with the words, "Always good to know where the door is." My daughter had just shown me exactly where it was. I opened the folder before I answered her. Venue deposit, $10,000, balance not due for 3 weeks. Cancellation terms favorable past 90 days out, and we were exactly 94 days out. The caterer, the florist, the band, the photographer, all the same. All mine. All cancelable. Every thread of that wedding ran through my signature. Pull me out, and there was no wedding, just a date, an address, and a family with a fading name and empty pockets. I typed my answer slowly, the way you write the most important line of a contract. Then I'll keep the 40,000 and you can keep the seat. I hit send. And then, the part that matters, I didn't sit there and wait. I called Sandra at 11:09 that night. I told her everything in 90 seconds. I want out, I said. I'm the responsible party. I want every cancellation right I have, and I want it started tonight, before I can talk myself out of it, before anyone can call my daughter and spin this before the facts are in. Are you sure? Sandra asked. Once I send these, this is real. I looked at my hands. I thought about row 6, about a slideshow with no picture of me in it, about 18 years of recitals in the back row in my work clothes. Bryn is going to be devastated either way, I said. She can be devastated as a girl who learned her mother has limits, or comfortable as a girl who learned her mother has none. Send the notices. Sandra called the venue's emergency line, reached the event manager, identified herself as my attorney, and formally invoked the cancellation clause, time-stamped 11:31 p.m. Same with the caterer, same with the planner. At 11:04, Bryn texted me. At 11:06, I replied. By 11:35, the venue and caterer had formal written notice the money was being pulled by the only person who'd ever had the right to spend it. My daughter called me at 12:05 a.m. By then, the wedding was already over in every way that mattered. She was calling to undo something already done. Mom, what did you do? She said, crying. Denise from the venue called, said you canceled, said your lawyer called. I did exactly what I told you I'd do, I said, calm. You told me I could come if I still paid, but not to expect a seat up front. I told you I'd keep the 40,000 and you could keep the seat. I'm a woman of my word. Why would you do this to me? She said. As if the 8 months, the row 6, the just handle the check had all been weather, and my one action was the only cruelty in the story. I did not do this to you, I said. I declined to do something to myself. I have been treated like a checkbook with a pulse. Tonight my own daughter told me in writing I could pay for her wedding, but not sit at the front of it. I chose my dignity over their party. You're being selfish, she said. It's not really her voice, it's the script. Blowing it up because you didn't get a good enough chair. A good enough chair, I repeated. Bryn, it was the seat your father should have been in, except he left, so it was just mine. The one seat in that whole room that was actually only mine. Silence. Then confusion in her crying, the first crack in the script. Vivian's going to lose her mind, she whispered. The Whitfields can't cover this. Preston told me they don't actually have it. They've been counting on. She stopped, hearing what she was about to say. On me, I finished gently. They despised me and depended on me at the same time. That should make you angriest of all. Vivian left a voicemail the next morning, starting gracious and curdling fast, demanding I reinstate everything immediately, as if my own $40,000 were hers to command. I called her back at noon from my van between job sites, in my work clothes on purpose. Now you'll fix this today, she started. No, I said, just the one syllable. The silence on her end was a woman realizing the help she despised held the only checkbook in the room, and had just closed it. Over the next few days, the Whitfields had to do what they'd avoided for 3 generations, look at their own bank account. Preston had a salary but no savings. Gerald's business was mostly debt in nice suits. Vivian had been quietly selling jewelry to keep up the house. The grand wedding had never been theirs to host. It had always been mine. Bryn watched all of it. She watched Preston side with his mother instead of standing up for either of us and go quiet the way the weak do. She came to my house that Saturday alone, no script this time, and looked at my hands and cried the real kind of cry. I introduced you as facilities at the engagement dinner, she said. I let all of it happen because I wanted them to think I was better than where I came from. You should hate me, she said. I never hated you for 1 second, I told her. I was just waiting for you to come back to yourself. Vivian couldn't leave a closed door closed. She showed up unannounced the next week with Preston trailing behind her, and sat at my table uninvited, offering to find me a seat somewhere dignified, just not the very front. If I restored the funding. That's the same offer, I said. You've just used nicer words. The answer is still no. Her polish cracked. Do you have any idea what it's been like to explain that Preston is marrying the daughter of a woman who scrubs floors? She said. The least you could do is fund the celebration quietly. Common, grasping. Careful, I said, quiet, but something in it stopped her. Say the word, Vivian. You've been swallowing it for 8 months. I laid the contracts on the table, one at a time. Cora Thorne, Cora Thorne. Cora Thorne, not Whitfield, not Bryn, mine. You spent 8 months treating me like a checkbook, but you never read the checkbook, I said. I closed the folder. I handled the check. I took it back. Now you handle what matters. Vivian stood so fast her chair scraped. You destroyed your own daughter's wedding over a seat, she spat. You keep the front seats, I said. All of them. I'll keep my $40,000 and my dignity. They cost me exactly the same. 40 years of these hands bought both. I'm not spending one to lose the other. And from across the kitchen, in a small, clear, changed voice, my daughter said, She's right, Vivian. And I'm ashamed it took me this long to say it. She looked at Preston. All week I waited for you to defend her or me, and you just sat there, the way I sat there for 8 months while your mother treated mine like staff. I almost became you both. She walked across the kitchen, stood next to me, and took my rough hand in hers. I'd rather have row 6 next to my mother than the front row next to people who put her there. I think you should both go, she said. Preston, don't call me tonight. I need to think about whether I want to marry a man who watched his mother do this and said nothing. They left. The 40,000 came home within weeks. The venue rebooked the date. The other vendors refunded their deposits minus small fees Sandra negotiated down. The grand Whitfield wedding never happened because there was no version of it the Whitfields could pay for themselves. The engagement ended in a fade. Preston never called to defend either of us, and a few weeks later Bryn gave the ring back. I kept waiting for him to become a man who'd stand up, she told me. I realized I was watching a documentary about my own life. I didn't want to marry the thing I was trying to stop being. Vivian told people the cleaning woman had destroyed the wedding out of spite. Let her, every person in this county who's ever worn a name tag knows exactly whose side they're on. Here's what I did with the $40,000. I gave it to my daughter, all of it, but not for a party. I put it toward a down payment on a little house, her name on the deed, her own door that locked, that no mother-in-law could ever seat her in row 6 of. You should keep it, Mom, she said. You earned it on your knees. I did, I told her. And there's no one I'd rather get up off my knees for than you. That's what the money was always for, not a wedding. You. She hung a framed photo of my hands in that house's entryway. Underneath it she wrote, These built everything. She works with me now, helping with marketing, not ashamed of it anymore. She'll get married again someday, I think, to someone who'd walk her mother to the front row without being asked. And I'll pay for it gladly, with these same hands, because the money was never the problem. It only became a weapon when they tried to separate the gift from the giver. I ran into Vivian once at the grocery store, months later. The old reflex crossed her face, then she remembered how it had all turned out, gave me a small, tight nod, and looked away first. I didn't gloat. She's a frightened woman guarding an empty name, and that's a harder life than mine. People ask if I regret canceling my own daughter's wedding 3 weeks out. I talked it through for 8 months first. Talking is what they count on. Talking is how they keep you in row 6. I don't regret a single thing, not the text, not the call to Sandra at 11 at night, not the contracts I quietly signed in my own name a year before I ever needed them. If there's one thing I'd hand you from all of this, it's this. Your generosity is a gift, not a tax. The day someone wants your open hand, but turns away your face, that's the day your kindness has been turned into a leash. Set it down. Give until it feels good, but never pay for the privilege of being treated as less. Keep your dignity and your generosity in the same hand. They cost you the same to earn. Don't spend one to keep the other. That's my story. One text, one call to my lawyer, and $40,000 that came home. If it reminded you that your worth was never up for a vote, take that as a sign. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time.